This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Stephanie Riel for the first time. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I want to let everybody know that we're a featured podcast on the Newsly platform. You can see that little icon said it listed on Newsly. Use that coupon code to get 1 month free premium subscription. We will be on Newsly later tonight. And this episode is actually episode I think we're at 968 of the podcast since 2016. We've been podcasting. And today's my birthday. I'm 56 today, so still going strong.
I love it. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And we'll get back to your website. For those of you who are on the audio, we've got www.stephaniereal.com/brand diagnostic with a dash there, but that will be fully clickable when we're published on all the major platforms at once, so you don't have to worry about that. You'll be able to click through on that. And in this episode, what we want to talk about is entrepreneurship, going all in, tips from a 13-year entrepreneur. So given that, you have the floor. However you want to start with your background.
Well, I guess we should start at the beginning and how the heck I got where I am. I actually started my first business at the age of 22, so there was a lot I didn't know back then that I've learned the hard way. And that's a beautiful experience now to get to help entrepreneurs at all stages either look at their marketing from a really strategic lens or just see different things in business that maybe we can shorten that time span between point A and point B because of some of the lessons that I've learned on the way. So I lived the side hustle life for about 9 years. Before it was cool. My friends thought I was nuts. Mm-hmm. Now everybody talks about how they have a side hustle. And I was about 10 or 11 years before the trend started for side hustle culture. So my friends just thought I was nuts, working nights and weekends for my business, helping clients, and building up experience too.
I would say, like musicians, we always have side hustles. I mean, sometimes people say our music, my studio here and this, what we're doing here, after 900 episodes, it has become something that I did not anticipate that it would be a side hustle. But now I actually have sponsors. I actually can monetize. And I did it because I like it. I got into podcasting just because it was fun. Somebody came to me and said, "Do you want to be interviewed?"
Yeah.
And they, as a musician, and I said, "Fine." I went on. I said, "Understand what a podcast was." This is 2016, and then we liked each other so much from the interview. This guy in New York, who was like a DJ, he basically was the guy that did record reviews and stuff. And then we did a podcast together for like 6 months. And then I said, "Why don't I?" He couldn't do it anymore, and I just started interviewing bands. So this whole podcast started just interviewing what you call emerging and independent musicians. Then I expanded to poets, authors, filmmakers, then CEOs, then life coaches, and I just got very expansive. But it became something that I just liked to do, and then started becoming something that actually pays me. That wasn't the plan, but it just fell into it. So sometimes things they come to you and you decide, are you going to actually go with it and do it? I just did it because it was fun. I probably won't do it if it's not fun anymore, but I just, that's how I did my plan. So it's not really a big business plan.
Well, I actually think sometimes that can be the best business plan, right? I mean, some of those accidental, we're having fun doing this and it really takes off, to be that committed to have over 900 episodes, or, to be, if you're listening and you're really passionate about a project and you want to figure out how to monetize it. Like sometimes that's the best place to start because it's hard work. And even all the behind the scenes that you need to create a podcast, you got to love it. Otherwise, there's a lot of people out there that do 1 or 2 episodes, right? And they disappear. So I think that passion is what makes the best brands last.
Yeah, because everybody's like their own brand. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He was a marketing guy. And he's like, no, everybody, you see, like, I'm kind of branding here. But that's like if you're a creator, you're an author, you're an actor, you create a brand, you're like, when you're creative people, we kind of automatically do that. And there are other people like brand creation. It's like, well, that is kind of the space that a lot of people are in now, because like
Yeah,
micro level business, like you can be your own brand at all these different levels that maybe you couldn't have done before. You could have 5 or 10 people doing something because of AI and robotics that you couldn't have done before. You could take 40
absolutely.
or 100 people, and now you can actually go and work for yourself. So maybe you can talk about like the entrepreneurship. Like my end goal is to like do this 100% of my time,
Yeah,
and travel around the world and actually go to the people and do the interview in the country that they're in and get that
absolutely.
filmed and do all that's my long-term goal. But I just
Yeah,
keep on going toward it. But
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, you start somewhere.
Well, and I think there's consistency there, right? I mean, you've proven that with the number of episodes that you have under your belt now. So many people give up, and they give up so early. And I think that that's a big part of entrepreneurship. And when I started that first business at 22, I didn't know what a common phrase in business. I didn't know what I didn't know, but I didn't know a lot. I hadn't even been out in the real world yet, right? And so
Mhm.
I had been around businesses and around entrepreneurs. So I had a little bit of that understanding, but so much of that, just like as humans, we grow and we evolve, and a business does too, whether that's a podcast, or maybe you're a creator, maybe you're a photographer, a musician, maybe you sell a product. That might evolve and shift over time too. I mean, the best brands do, right? You don't get to be an Apple if you don't have evolution along the way. I mean, they don't make iPods anymore. I love
Yeah,
music. I listen to music every day, but I'm not listening to it on an iPod. They evolved
but
and
they just
changed.
they got it into their phone. They kind
Yeah,
of
exactly.
nobody realized. They'd be like, well, the iPod was big from the Mac, the MacBook, or
Yeah, music you could
but
carry around with you. How cool is that?
but they had the vision. It's like
Yeah,
what I liked about Apple is that they're very expansive. Like they started with
absolutely.
a computer, then they went
Absolutely.
to a phone. They went to a music player to
Yeah.
challenge the record industry. Then they went to a phone that integrated the music player and got rid
Yeah.
of the music player. And they were
Yeah.
willing to get rid of a product that they actually had. The
Yeah.
iPod was like, why would you go and supplant a product you were doing good with? But they
Yeah.
saw the future. See, some people are not willing to do that. Like they
Well,
actually made one of their own products extinct
yeah. Well,
on
and I think
purpose.
that's the mic drop moment right there. I mean, that's the key to being a good entrepreneur. That's how you have longevity. You have to be willing to put yourself out of business and always be innovating and iterating and trying something new, because the world changes. I mean, it changes faster now than ever before. And with new technology coming in every day, from AI to um, machine learning and all the different aspects of that technology that are really going to change the landscape, even in the very near future to 5 years from now. Things are going to look so different, but we have to be willing to change and evolve and see where, as humans, we can have an advantage. We might not, we're not going to be able to outsmart the robots forever. At least that's my
Yeah,
belief. But how can we add a human element to some of those different pieces? As a creator, there's certain things that only a human's going to be able to do. So
yeah,
it's adapting and learning and growing, but playing into technology too. And I mean, you said it beautifully. That's exactly what Apple did. That's exactly what every major brand or people that have been in business for a long time, you adapt and grow and you evolve. And that's what a good business does too, because the customer doesn't stay the same forever,
yeah.
especially with all
I mean,
this
that's the thing.
technology at our fingertips, right? I mean, being able to have a
Yeah,
computer in our hands at any time, and half of us are so glued to it, it's changing the ways that our spine is structured, because we're also connected to our devices, that we have to be able to grow and evolve with that too.
well, the thing is, like wearables is the new thing. I
Oh
actually
yeah.
I've got I'm a diabetic. I'm wearing a
Yeah.
monitor. I don't have to pinprick. I actually
Yeah.
can get my numbers,
Yeah.
and that's the future of medical devices, like external and internal,
Yeah.
micro robots doing surgery, actually going in
Wow.
your body and actually getting rid of a tumor by low micro robots, so you don't
Yeah.
actually have a physical surgery, and that's like Star Trek stuff.
I
And
know. Isn't that crazy?
people think that well that can't be, and like no, that's actually
It's
what's coming.
coming.
That's
Yeah.
actually coming. So, and the thing is, when I look at it as a creative person, like You can use AI, you can use sampling, you can use all kinds of tools. Like, being a synthesis to tell a story. Like when the first synthesizer showed up in New York City, traditional musicians said that's not music.
Yeah.
They said those aren't those Moogs, those synthesizers, those aren't real, right?
Yeah.
And when R.A. Moog, Dr. Moog came up with his synthesizers in the 50s, there were only the people who started gravitating toward them were experimental jazz musicians, and just experimental musicians who were willing to kind of push the envelope. A band like Sun Ra was willing to actually get one of the first ones in the 50s, like 59. And people were kind of slamming them, saying, "Oh, that's not real." But that's the same thing with like AI sampling. Like, there's always going to be somebody who's going to say the tech isn't bad, but I think it's how you use the tech.
Absolutely.
You can, like, if you're kind of like a lazy tech, you do it, let 99% of it do your work.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't, like, my opinion, like as a creative person, I use an AI as a tool for like tasks that are too menial or repetitive. I don't want to do, like mastering or mixing or engineering.
Yeah, because
but not
then
for
you can spend more. Exactly.
not for
Because then you
writing
get
the
more
song.
time for the stuff you like. Exactly. I know it's this, what you just shared in this part of like our conversation right now is reminding me at VCon 2023, Timbaland was there and he was talking about how even when autotune first came out, how people were like, "Oh, that's not music." And now most tracks in
autotune,
and they're all, they all use some element of autotune, but it was such a dirty word and such a hated technology in the beginning, and he was equating that to AI as well. So it's, I think whatever point in history we go to, people always, it's part of our human experience. It's our brains. We are hardwired to be afraid of change because that means that something's unsafe. Our brains are hardwired. I've been doing a lot of deep dive on neuroscience. By no means am I a scientist, but I listen to a lot of them. So it's really cool, though, to hear about kind of how our bodies are meant to evolve. And so, of course, we fear the unknown. That's just a given as a human. But if you can get past that fear and embrace it and use it, like you're saying, for part of the process, maybe that doesn't light you up or takes away from the part that you really love, like that's a win-win then, because you're adapting, but you're still getting to do what you love and you're getting to spend more time doing more of it. And that's the way to get this to be, your full-time focus, or you're launching that new business, working with it instead of having so much resistance that you miss the boat altogether.
Well, you think about like, when people get automated cars, you think about like Uber, and even when Uber is doing their automated cars, they have human backup drivers that now can just be in a remote center driving the car.
Yeah.
So that's actually a new job. Even though the robot takes the car, there'll be a human operator for all those cars. There has to be a human, right? That's what people are forgotten. There are new jobs that get created from the tech. And the problem with sometimes though is the new job might require certain capability that our schools did not prepare us. Sometimes,
sure.
I'm a developer, software developer, so I have to do a lot of critical thinking.
Yeah.
A lot of jobs in the cubicles or in the industrial kind of, if you're in an industrial situation, they didn't require you to have critical thinking or creativity as much. It's like you had to just learn how to do something fast or accurate or repetitive.
Absolutely.
But when you have the robots doing that and you have the AI doing that, it frees up human beings to actually do a little bit more personal development.
Yeah.
And maybe our school systems are going to need to ramp up, or our training systems are going to have to ramp up to get people to get to those new places where they're going to have to use their head more than before. And that, I think that's the critical thing that we need probably government or some people to understand that that's going to have to happen, or people will get left behind.
Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of the entrepreneurs that I talk to and I work with, and even that relationship with that entrepreneurial mind versus school, a lot of really successful entrepreneurs didn't go to the highest schooling or didn't even, get a diploma at any level, because it's for entrepreneurship, there is that core of that creativity, thinking outside the box, challenging the status quo. And a lot of the schooling and a lot of the systems that what education looks like, just teach you how to be that worker in the factory. You follow directions, you do this. And as an entrepreneur, there is no playbook. You are in charge. You have to think differently and be creative and adapt and think on your feet. And so it is, I think you said that beautifully. It is going to require a different way of thinking, because the jobs are going to be different. Robots are already doing some of those things, right? And so even at a lot of the grocery stores in my local community, they have more and more check yourself out, self-checkout.
There are McDonald's, they can be fully automated. I mean, there are restaurants, they can be fully automated. You can get to such a point, and this is where you can have a quick reduction of a lot of kind of low-end jobs, jobs that kids used to take, or were part-time jobs, or jobs that poor people took because they had to have 2 or 3 of them, working at 3 restaurants. Yeah. And then what's going to happen is they're going to have to move toward maybe that remote driving for the Uber, or repairing the robots, or repairing the drones, or learning how to make the drones and service the drones. And so that's a different skill set to service a drone than to sit in a restaurant. And so then you have to learn, there's going to be a lot of tech certifications, like a drone certified mechanic. Yeah. Somebody that can run the servers or help build the structures for all this AI. You're going to have build centers to build the software, the computers that run these things. So there will be jobs for construction people. There will be management jobs. There will be analyst jobs. There will be, the white collar jobs that go with that stuff. Yeah. There's going to be different industries, and you're going to have to get into it. I mean, I have a big belief in the future. It's kind of like Gene Roddenberry, those things that you used to see in Twilight Zones, and now that's the kind of coming true. The Harlan Ellison, Ray Bradbury, that stuff. And part of that whole idea, if you ever listen to Carl Sagan, was you got to have this kind of holistic thinking. Absolutely. And a lot of people don't have holistic thinking; they have very narrow thinking. Yeah, and I think the future is going to be where, even in business, you have to have a bigger picture, or like you said, or you're not going to innovate, right? Yeah, because if you're so narrowly focused, I find this often with entrepreneurs or businesses that are struggling. They're so hyper focused on one thing, and they're disregarding so much other data. And I think especially I work and have worked a lot with digital marketing, and you get that instant feedback from the data. It's amazing. We can know so much. We know what's resonating with an audience. But so many business owners don't use that to their advantage. They just keep on doing the same thing they were doing. And I was like, well, let's look at your data and see if it's actually working, because if you're not hitting that goal, then something's off and we can figure it out. And so I think that that's where a human interpretation can come in, and being able to see that big picture. That is a critical piece of any kind of entrepreneurship or creativity, is knowing, I have a music background, and I know so much of the art that we create for ourselves, and there's such beauty in that, but we do it for the fans and the audience too, and kind of what they receive. And that's how you get these big followings for some of the big name musicians, or even some of the indie artists that really come up and they connect because they build community. And that's something that humans get to do. So that's another piece of of creative juices and entrepreneurial juices the same, because when you have that community, that's your built-in network to be able to really serve the best. So because you build kind of a collective, I'm in collectives of I'm a experimental synthesis. I do sound design. I've got nothing but synthesizer. I know. I see it. I see all your toys back there. It's very exciting. So, they're analog, they're digital, they're from the 70s, they're from now. And there's a whole, my community expands all around the world. I talk to people in New Zealand, Japan, Berlin. And so a lot of what I do doesn't actually resonate as much here, maybe in New York or Los Angeles, but a lot of the people I talk to are it's worldwide. I talk to producers in Japan. I talk to guys in Australia. And what I found is in the type of music I'm into, I have to kind of expand to those places to find my peer group. And so I have a very wide open kind of, it's this all over the world group of people, and I wasn't just looking for people in the US.
Yeah.
And from the start, that's what I had to realize, like my core base is like all over the place. It's not just
Which is
here.
amazing. Yeah.
And that's kind of where people with their business is like, if you don't have a distribution capability that can get you worldwide, then you'll never know. Like if you're just trying to satisfy your neighborhood or your region, and you don't know that you could actually be selling this in Australia. You could be
Oh
selling
yeah.
this in the EU. You could be selling this in the Pacific Rim, but you don't know because you think you're kind of limiting yourself to maybe like you've always sold just the northeastern states.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
yeah, maybe you should go beyond that.
I was like, I'm putting my hands on between my head because it's that saying, well, this is the way I've always done it, right? But that's not a way to foster innovation. And you could be missing out on such an opportunity, especially we have this beautiful gift. We are all on this planet during the time of the internet. We can reach people all over the globe, which is an amazing gift. But if you do think so narrowly, I see so many times people who are holding themselves back. And we can fall into that trap if we're thinking too small, if we're not thinking big enough, like you said, where you realize that your audience is so much bigger and so much more expansive than you first thought. That's amazing.
Because you think about like resources, like if you only like say living like I live in New England, right? If you have a small shop, an IT shop, it's like I'm only going to get people from this area, from New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, right? But the company I'm working with, I work with people in Ireland, and in Bangalore, in some parts of EU, Germany, like people all over the world. Like we deal with programmers, we have to be on different. Sometimes I got to get up at 6 in the morning and talk to somebody at 7 that's in the Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
And we found that there's a lot of talent, and they're just they're remote, and they're from different cultures. They have different, they're Muslims, they're Hindus, they're Jews, they're other people. They're not just who I know and who I go to church with. So if you've got a kind of limited frame that where you only want people that you know or that you grew up with or in your group, you're going to miss those other people.
Absolutely.
You have skill sets that you need.
Yeah.
But if you don't value that diversity, that it's a diversity. It's not just like people look like me. It's diversity like you all worldwide.
Absolutely.
Talking to a Japanese engineer and an engineer from Abu Dhabi or Dubai.
Absolutely.
Why not?
Well, especially the internet makes it is so easy for us to connect. I mean, when I was growing up, you still made collect calls and had to use a calling card if you were traveling, things like that. And like I know that sounds so foreign to any youngsters now, but we are so much more connected, and it's such a beautiful gift and resource to be able to connect with people who are highly skilled for the job, who maybe you would have never been able to connect with before because the technology limited it. Now it's unlimited, so we can connect. We can talk to the people that are in Dubai or in Japan or wherever they might be. If they're uniquely qualified and the right person, our community just can expand that much more, which is awesome. So awesome.
Yeah, and then you get that mindset. Like if you're working with somebody in Japan, you start to get an understanding of what works in the Eastern market.
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it's a little bit different. It is, yeah.
Totally different. I actually lived in Japan. I actually was an expat. I was there from 2004 to 2006. And it was a really good experience to actually, a big major company sent me there. But the problem was they were trying to force US mindset for sales and business into the Japanese market. In the Japanese market, there was a lot of people that actually use the post office to save money. They actually use it like a savings and loan. And the big insurance companies were trying to pull that money out of there into the big companies. But they didn't know how to market right to the Japanese audience because they were doing it like they were an American audience. It's like what I kept on saying, is like you got to understand that we're gaijin to them, right?
Yeah,
we're
absolutely. Absolutely.
You have to talk to them in you got to learn the culture and look at what the Japanese insurance companies and the Japanese banks do. And they would invite people to convention centers and then try to engage to like get them to want to be, into their product.
Absolutely.
And, there's a different mindset, a different way they did it. And you had to start doing it their way understand the culture and not just think it's going to be my way or the highway.
Yeah. Well, and that's totally fair, right? You would never go to somebody's house and then dictate how they were going to set the table, if they're having you over for dinner, what you're going to eat. No, you're a guest there. You can learn. And I think that that's one of the other big lessons when I'm thinking about marketing and branding. So much of the work that I do in the brand diagnostic, and when I'm looking at data, I want to understand my clients' customers, because that's who we're marketing to. It's not about the business. It's how the customer is going to receive the information about the business or what you're helping them do or achieve with your product and service. And it's so similar there too. We have to meet the customer where they're at. So you can't go in and force your ways upon somebody. Nobody wants to be told what to do, especially not by Americans. We get a rightfully bad rap in a lot of other places because of that. But it's very similar with marketing and building a business too. We have to as a business, you exist to serve your customer. So you got to know what your customer is all about and what they really need, and then you can create marketing strategy all day long.
But it seems like a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to get new customers, and I've been talking to people lately. They're talking about like you need to be able to retain customers. Like you get a customer, retain them, and don't let them just drop off and keep on trying to get new ones. Because if you can retain somebody and they buy the products and they stay in, they subscribe, they buy, they join, they sign up, they get on the mailing list, they take the text, they get into the coupon program. Then you got somebody, and then they probably word of mouth, they bring other people in. But if you have to keep on bringing in new people, right, that probably costs a lot to bring in new people versus retaining somebody and making them like finding out what they want and actually catering to your current base.
Absolutely. And it always depends on the data. So every business is a little bit different, but I would say it's very common in my 14 years of doing this. There's a lot of times that focus on the newest, and I get it. I mean, right? Like DirecTV and all the cell phone companies, they give you a new member deal, right? And then you get nothing when you've been with them for a while, which isn't the right way to do it. Because when you do have that longevity with your customers, they become your cheerleader. They become your best rewards program, your best affiliate or brand ambassador if they have a great experience. And it costs so much less to keep. Oftentimes, it can cost so much less to keep them because they'll bring in more customers, like you're saying, versus having to go through the new customer acquisition every time. Now, and every business is different. So in order to really know, we'd have to look at your data and see what it's all about. But I would say that is a common pitfall because it's shiny new syndrome. Oh, what do I do? How do I get this funnel set up so I can get a new customer? Well, what are you doing to nurture your existing customers too? Because you already paid to get them. So how can we make sure that they stay? And a lot of times where that gets sticky is it's not just marketing. It's also how their sales experience was or their service experience was. That's all an extension of the brand and marketing too. And we've led some really amazing campaigns for businesses over the years, and they didn't have sales in place, or they had a really negative customer experience when people got in the door. So the marketing dollars were wasted because they didn't have their house in order. So it depends. Every business is a little bit different, but the data makes it really clear what's going on.
You also have to consider, like, if you've got a whole sales force that's triggered, that basically is dependent on commissions, and they're really rewarded for bringing like only the new people in. Like if you've got it's tilted, so the sales force is always going to be trying to get new people and not retain the existing people. Then your whole sales team is going to be, and they're going to be talking to marketing and kind of pushing that and saying that's what you should do. And then you got to look at it like, well, I understand we got to satisfy the sales force, but it's like you can do sales in all kinds of ways now with the internet, with all kinds of things. We kind of are shooting ourselves in the foot with the way the sales strategy is going versus the internet sales and the direct sales going, like, and then the customer loyalty. Like maybe you need to kind of look at all of it and do some analytics. Do you help people with that?
Oh, yes.
Figure out which way to go?
Yes. And even I think the extension and the bridge between sales and marketing, because you're right. If there is that incentive on the sales side, that can really skew the way that the team is showing up. If you have a full sales team and you're working off of commission or something like that. But that's why when you can sit down and look at the data, especially if you have a digital presence, spending time on your website, understanding I love Google Analytics because it's a free tool and it can give you so much information about how people are coming and finding your business online, where they're going once they're on your website, where they're leaving, like what pages aren't keeping their attention that they're bouncing off the page. And it can really tell us a lot about the marketing, messaging, the kinds of information that the customer is interested in, and then pairing that with the sales team to figure out where the missing gap is. Because a marketing strategy is only as great as if the sales team is going to reiterate those same messages, because we need that consistency. As a customer, you don't want to hear one thing on the marketing page and then go to have a conversation with the salesperson and they tell you something totally different. That breaks trust. It doesn't build trust. So we have to look at the big picture and talk to the sales team too, figure out what's going on, understand the sales process so that we can make a strategy that works for both and is going to get the best results possible. Because I think that so often, no offense to sales teams, but they come back some days and run rogue, right? They're doing their own thing, saying what they need to say to close the deal, which is wonderful. I understand. And we have to build consistency because that builds trust and that's going to close your sale quicker than anything else. So we take a look at that. And,
well, the thing is, the commission can kind of mess with your brand loyalty if they're just trying to focus totally on the commission without the maintenance. You know, my dad was an insurance agent for like 25 years. Yeah. And it was old school. He had a really strong block of business. Yeah. That he kept on going back to these core people. And every time they had friends, they knew people that got married or whatever, he kept on going back to his core group and finding people from them. Instead of finding like totally new people, he was always kind of mining his existing people, like who's getting married, who's buying a house, who's going to college, who's, and then tracking them and then building from that. And it was all kind of relationship based and it works. But, you have to think about it in the kind of way that, if he's constantly showing up, then what he gave them has got to be good or they'll
absolutely drop. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and even no matter what technology comes into play, whether it's today or 20 years from now, business is all about relationships. That's something that I learned from my dad. He was in real estate and it was cool. He passed a decade ago, but it was really cool when he passed at his funeral, so many of his clients and then their whole families who he had built the relationship and it's just, you learn that and you see that and you watch that and you know how important it is. And I think technology takes away a little bit of that personal connection, but there's a lot of really awesome ways and really special ways that you can still build those relationships in, even though it's over a digital screen or maybe on a social media channel or on the website, because that's relationships. People do business with brands that they know, like, and trust. So whether that's an insurance salesperson or a real estate agent, or if you're looking to buy a car or, buying a piece of jewelry or whatever it might be, you want to know that you're in good hands. And that's just the basis of good business. And so if you treat people good and you use data to be really strategic and intentional about how can we make this the best experience possible and what do our customers want? How do we give them that and help build the relationship even more in our marketing? Then that can really go a long way.
That's why I love this live podcasting format. Yeah. And I found a lot of businesses, I've gotten, and when I first was into it, I didn't see as many businesses back in 2016, which is more like people we're just blogging, like video blogging. Yeah. And then we started having guests. And now I see businesses using this, and initially it was kind of like infomercials, and then they started realizing that they could have interactions with customers. Yeah, you could introduce a product, right, and then allow people to come in and comment, or maybe even talk to people while you're introducing the product. And then because you're actually live, people feel like they're connecting. Yeah. And then like I deal with companies like I like Moog. And they'll go do like a YouTube session and introduce a brand new machine and then have people go in and people can actually ask questions while they're demoing the machine. Say, can you do this? Can you do that? In real time, you get to see the new product actually do something, like you were in the showroom.
Absolutely. It's
And
so
I think
cool.
that's very powerful.
It is.
You're more likely to buy that because you
Yeah.
actually had an experience and it's not something that was canned. It feels authentic and
Absolutely.
real.
Absolutely.
You know?
And if you have a question, what a better way to get it answered. You're seeing how the product works. So you're building trust with that too. You're getting visibility. And if you have questions or want to know about utility, you can see it and get it answered in real time. That's amazing because not only is it building that trust, it's already with somebody that you know. So that's covered. You're building trust, and then you're going to like it because you feel heard and that your concern is understood. If you're having that engagement, which that's just such a brilliant and such a simple way. I mean, think about years ago before this technology was around, you'd have to go to a showroom or back in the days of door-to-door sales, they'd have to go and show off the product door to door.
Like a vacuum guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was just thinking about the vacuum guy. It's like you have to go and show that vacuum to every door, do the same demo. Now you can do the same demo once and reach your ideal customer and answer their questions. So it's saving you time and you're leaving the customer with a really great experience too, because they feel seen and heard and understood.
Yeah, it's like the vacuum and the fuller brush guys. Like now you can actually have a session where they can actually show you and people can actually say, hey, can you go show me how this vacuum handles like sand or handles a bunch of nails on the ground. And then they can in real time do it instead of a can do it. And then people actually see it. And they're more likely to say if they see that real time, then they believe it. And then they're like, wow, that thing really, then if you make it so you can order, you have the button and somebody can just go and they click in. You can sell out the first run. I've seen things happen where people do it like this with all kinds of products and they sell out, from people doing NFTs to doing like, blockchain type of stuff and, going on and doing a session. And in that session, you're doing the offering and the first goal for like selling 1,000 of them, boom, it's gone. Absolutely. And that to me is like that. Wow, that's super powerful.
I know. Well, and I think the other thing, this just popped in when you were saying that. I think especially in the creator space and in NFTs, the backstory, and this is true for any business, not just the creator space, but for any entrepreneur. It is so important to share your why. There's a reason why you started the project you started, why you started the business you started. And that's what people connect with, because that's the human side of what makes us do something or want to see something different, or even the art we're creating, the inspiration behind it. That connection draws more people in. And so many people are afraid to share that story or afraid to be authentic and share what really is their true experience and the foundation of that project, or what sparked the creativity, or what made them decide to start the business. And I think that's what always has hooked me in. That's what I love helping business owners draw out and understand, so that we can bring that to life for their customer. But you think about on Shark Tank, those stories that are just so heartfelt of the best of intentions. I'm on the website buying the product right there because I'm already connected to it. And so it's such a magic piece of a marketing puzzle and a brand story that I think sometimes we're afraid to share, especially as creators. I feel like sometimes we can hide behind the art. I know that, speaking to myself a little bit here too, of just not wanting to share that story. And that is sometimes our best thing. Connection.
Well, that's why I tell a story like with artists, like as a producer. And I'll run into an artist where I'm trying to work with them and they're trying to show me that they can clone like the top 20. Yeah. And I'm like, I already heard that, right? What I want to hear is the song you're scared to show anybody.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell somebody, I want to hear the song that you don't want to show anybody. You're kind of scared to show anybody, because that's the song I'm interested in. Yeah. I'm not interested if you can sound like Taylor Swift or sound like Drake. I don't care about that. I want to know how you sound, because I find that is what is your real ticket, is your individuality. And if I can make that sound better, that's what I look for. And I think people are scared. It was like the fear. People are fear.
Yeah.
They're scared of the fear
Oh yeah.
of the situation of revealing something that somebody might not like, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is that fear stops people. So if you're
Yeah.
scared of being honest, then you want to have a pre-canned, pre-filmed, scripted, and try to control everything. And then
Yeah.
what happens is you don't get the best experience because it doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel honest. And if you're willing
Yeah.
to kind of put yourself out there in something where they can have happy accidents, you could
Yeah.
have a mistake. That's why I don't do a
Yeah.
scripted, filmed ahead of time podcast, because I find
Yeah.
the conversations I have with people that are off the cuff and real, even if they have errors or mistakes or whatever,
Yeah.
or saying
I
me
agree.
too many times, it's like, well, that's real.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you read my mind, that word authenticity. I talk about that with clients and other business owners and creators and friends all the time. Is, we're so programmed, going back to education and what we started talking about from the start. School as a kid is tough. You want to fit in, you want to be liked. And I think early on we learn those lessons of wanting to be like everybody else, so you fit in and that everybody likes you. And as you come into your own and you mature and you grow, you find that the thing that people really like you for the most is the thing that makes you uniquely you. And that's the same for a business or an artist or a creator. When we can share from an authentic place of who we are and what really lights us up, that's what gets people the most excited. That's what gets people to know, like, and trust you the most, because you're being real. Because as we get more and more connected to this digital space, people can tell when you're not being authentic or when something's off. And that authenticity is what connects the best.
Yeah, it's kind of like the elevator pitch or the story. Like, I've always been in business, and like I tell people, like when you're interviewing, like tell young kids, because I'm in software development, and I talk to some kids coming out of undergrad, and I say, don't go and give us a whole novel. Don't go and give me like a Steinbeck novel. Tell when you talk to that person who's going to hire you, give the elevator pitch that's going to show them like the top 5 reasons why they should hire you.
Yeah.
And in a way that once you get out that elevator, you said it, but you don't have any more time than that elevator trip. And so if you can do that, and you can do it in an honest way, that you found a way that it doesn't feel canned, and you can kind of roll with the punches if they ask you something, that's the way you're going to get through.
Absolutely. What great advice.
Well, yeah, it just seems like sometimes people want to throw the kitchen sink when they get a chance to talk, and then people don't hear anything you say.
No, yeah, because you give them too much information, and our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. But when you use that like word salad, I like to call it, where you're just like talking all kinds of things and saying it all, people get confused. And when people are confused, they disconnect, they stop listening. If they're on your website and they're confused, they're leaving and going to a competitor's page. If they're not able to connect, it kills the whole connection. So being as succinct as possible, being as authentic as possible, and staying true to yourself. Those are they sound so cheesy and so silly, but it's so important for business and life.
But you've talked before about like analytics and science, and maybe we can talk to you a little before we're kind of getting near the end, but the science behind branding, and you can talk more about maybe some of the theories behind it that you are.
Absolutely. So 2 of the things that we use in the branding work, so we work with a lot of businesses that are brand new, and they need their colors, logos, fonts, how they're going to be positioned in the marketplace, or they've been around for a while and it's not quite hitting the mark. And I often find that entrepreneurs, especially when they're starting out, they'll choose maybe their favorite color for their brand. And it's so problematic because our brains subliminally receive messages from different colors before we even read a word on a page. So the colors that we use, the fonts that we choose, even color psychology and font psychology go into that. So there are certain colors that make us feel really safe and like we can trust. Blue is the color that makes us most. It's one of the most universal colors that brands use. Because of that, it makes us feel safe and secure and trust, and like we can trust, which is why you see Facebook, LinkedIn, Chase Bank, a lot of other financial institutions, they're all using blue. PayPal, all of these different brands use blue. Whereas like a color like orange it might not resonate with everyone. Blue is the most, I think it's like 80% of people connect with blue. So it's a safe color to choose. Whereas other colors like orange or green, which is you see a lot of health brands. It has a lot of vitality, even financial success or health and well-being connected to that. Fuchsia, hot pink is known for being energizing and fun, which is why you see like Virgin, Mobil, Richard Branson's conglomerate all uses that. And so does T-Mobile. They want to stand out. They're all intentional. And so my best advice for a business is not to choose your favorite color, but to choose the color that's going to subliminally connect and convey what you want your audience to know. And so that's what we work with brands to do. I could go through and we could spend a whole other hour all about the different colors and what they mean, which is really interesting because our brains, we're getting hit with subliminal messaging from different brands at all times of day. Red, it signals alert to us, or it might connect you to like errors and grading on papers from school. So like our brains don't usually have a good connection with red. And that's why you see a lot of cable news networks that are all based on fear using that color as well. And so there's all attention behind it. Red is also very attention getting. And it has a positive side too, but it just depends on that overall intention that you have behind it. And same thing with fonts. There's certain fonts that are going to give you a very playful and fun vibe, like a script font. That's a little bit more feminine. Display font or a deco font like Disney, very playful. Sans serif, which fonts, now we're going to get really nerdy in the little time that we have left about fonts, but like something like Times New Roman, which I say because most people know what that is. It has these little lines on it. Those are called flags, and sans serif doesn't, they're serifs, but they're the little flags that are on the ends of the letters. A sans serif font doesn't have them, so they're considered to be very modern. And whereas like a font like Times New Roman is more traditional now.
Yeah, more like what you read in a book or something. Like
exactly, it's more of like a book typeface. Yeah, and a lot of these typefaces are from like the 1800s when the printing press, and like even back to like just initial tribal markings and like what's in the pyramids in Egypt and just all this amazing history. But it's kind of cool how our brains and how we've evolved to still have some of those same messages come through because of our human DNA. So when you're building a brand, it's really important to think about all of those things so that you're giving the right message to your audience, because I always say confused customers don't convert. So if we're confusing them by the words that we're using, the fonts or the colors, they might head for the hills and run to the next competitor that makes it a little bit clearer or has a more consistent message instead of choosing your business. So that is about the quickest I can go through branding ever, but it at least gives you some idea of how there's a lot more strategy and intention behind it. And we go through a whole deep dive on the ideal customer and then picking fonts and colors that are going to connect most with them and the benefit that they'll get from that business through our branding process. So,
well, we are kind of getting to the close of the podcast, but I want to remind people that we have your URL of the www.stephanieriel.com and then /brand-diagnostic. And maybe you can tell people, if people click on that, what will they see there?
So that is that initial data deep dive that I do for clients. It became so popular. I actually do it as a one-off as well. So you can just get a look at your data, an audit of your marketing, looking at your channels like your website, your email marketing, social media, and identifying things that are missing, things that are in the gaps, really translating that data. I know so many business owners don't look at their data, but I try to help it make sense, but also arm business owners with an understanding of it. So you get a recording video of understanding and context of things to look for as you're tracking it over time, because we always want to see those numbers improving. And typically there is an option that you can get a 90-day marketing plan with it too. So you'll get information on that at that link.
That's great. I think a lot of people need help with the analytics because it gets too, mathematical for people to understand what it means. So if you can kind of like give the high level summary that's understandable to the C-suite level people, A-suite, if they can understand, like, hey, this is like this, you actually kind of, not to dumb it down, but you actually make it so it's understandable. So I think some people, to get to all that data, it's overwhelming. They don't know how to read it right.
Maybe, if you don't know what you're looking at and you go in there, it can be very overwhelming. So we help make it really clear and break it down into bite-sized information of different things to look at, different things just from even a first look for your website, for example, what's working and what isn't. And then really helping give some recommendations of things to improve those different metrics so you can better connect with your ideal customer.
That's great to have informed diagnostics and the metrics that actually allow you to make good decisions. And that's the point.
Absolutely.
But thank you again for being on the show. We appreciate you being on the Family What Goes podcast today. We will create a landing page everywhere the podcast is available, and we'll give that to you tomorrow. And thank you for being on the show tonight. We were live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. People can go back and listen and watch there. But we'll give you a landing page for everywhere it's going to be.
Wonderful.
And that's like Spotify and Apple and iHeartRadio and all these other places. But
amazing.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And happy birthday again.
Thank you.